Dear esteemed viewers of Civic Space TV, welcome to the third edition of the Youth Roundtable in this year 2022. We're happy that you continuously watch these discussions, and we pledge on our part to always have brilliant young men and ladies to engage in topics that concern you, in topics that we think are of importance to you, and we hope that throughout this process, you learn a thing or two from us. And if you do, you shall be the most happy people in the world. Otherwise, we always remind you that you can also always leave your comments down, suggest for us topics, yeah, and the team will let us know what you want us to discuss or the young people you want us to host, and we shall have them. Now, straight to the discussion, we are going to look at the relationship between government and citizens in this country called Uganda from the young people's perspective. And we have a panel of three distinguished gentlemen and a lady that are going to help us to touch light into this topic and look at it from different perspectives. What they expect their government to do for them and whether their government has lived up to that standard, and what the government should expect from them and whether they habitually render the same to the government. So without further ado, let me allow my panelists introduce themselves. Let's begin with the gentleman right next to me. So you're going to tell us your name, you're going to tell us where you work if you work, you're going to tell us where you're a student if you're a student, and where you're coming from, in case we need to know that.
Oh, thank you very much, Council Toko. My name is Rubangakene Shaa. I am a medical student at Makerere University. I volunteer with Ministry of Health, Seed Global Health, to coordinate the national training program for emergency care medicine. And then I also volunteer with Uganda Cancer Institute, where I aid in the pathology department. Thank you very much.
My name is Mutesi, Olivia. I represent the Ugandan youth in the PanAfrican Youth Union. It's a youth council for Africa, and I'm the vice president of East Africa. I am a student pursuing my second master's in women and gender studies from Makerere University. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Kateregga, Julius, KJ. I am also 5 Lord Councillor, representing the people of Kawempe South at State Hall. I am also the new representative of the interests of the people of Kampala at Makerere University Council. I'm a former guild president of the same university, where I pass off as the 85th guild president of Makerere University. The pleasure is mine to be here. So
just tell us, you're representing students at the council?
No, I represent Kampala district to Makerere University Council. I'm the new council representative, replacing our worship, the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Nyanjura?
Yes.
So she assigned you that role, eh?
The Lord Mayor, the office of the Lord Mayor.
Assigned you that role. Okay. Listen to Mr.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Moderator. To the viewers, good afternoon. My name is Kidega Moses. I'm the Secretary for Labor and Works of the National Youth Council. And because the comrade asked us to mention where we come from, I come all the way from Gulu, and I'm also a lover of young people, and I'm a resident panelist on this talk show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You've listened to those rich CVs, very rich, from the gentlemen. We even have a whole member of Makerere University Council who sits with the Vice Chancellor of the university, and I think even Council Chiriwa Chiwanuka. Very eminent.
Council Tayewa too.
Very eminent members of society sit there, and he also sits among them. So that's the panel that's going to discuss for you the topic we've chosen today. And I'm going to begin with the lady. Mutesi, are you Ugandan?
Yes, I am.
So when you say you're Ugandan, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Is there something you expect out of that from the country called Uganda? Is there something Uganda should expect from you? Just try to enunciate for us on that relationship. When you say, I am a Ugandan, what exactly you mean?
I am a Ugandan. I'm by nationality, and Uganda as a country, I am a citizen, and I pay taxes, and I expect the country to use my taxes rightly to give me better services.
Okay.
Yes.
Kateregga, are you proud to be a Ugandan?
I am a Ugandan. I am proud. to be identified with this nation.
Mm.
Though I feel there is a lot that we lack as a nation in regards to us being associated, and in relation to the question of pride. I may be proud by my stand, and maybe because I've been enabled to fight for myself and to stand out. But as a leader, ideally is the reality is that this nation still lacks a lot in as far as building national pride for the people, but especially for its young people.
Is concerned. So, Comrade Kidega, if you were asked, if a voice spoke from the clouds, from heaven, and said, by 6 p.m. today you won't be a Ugandan, and there are all these other countries in the world, from those countries in the world, pick one that you want to be a citizen of, and that country is not Uganda. Which country would you pick, and why would you pick that country?
Thank you. I think, first of all, I would dispel that voice with the highest...
If it's the voice of God, I don't think you're going to argue with God.
Well, the point is that there is no other country I would rather be a citizen of than to be a Ugandan citizen.
And why is that so?
Why is that so is because, yes, I believe that just like any other country, we are still doing a lot of soul searching in so many things. You know, our democracy, it's still young and it's still building. Look at the aspects of human rights, access, things like access to education, access to healthcare. We are still doing so much soul searching here and there. But I think there is some hope for us as young people. So I am proudly Ugandan, and I would not wish to be any other nationality other than being a Ugandan. Yeah.
Okay, let's come now to Mr. Rubangakene. Rubangakene means God alone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think you'd have respected God's voice more than Kidega. But okay, that aside, so we see young people wearing t-shirts that proclaim in capital letters 99% Acholi, 1% Ugandan. Or 99% a Muganda, 1% a Ugandan. So what I'm saying is that normally the Ugandan percentage seems the insignificant one. Yeah? If they said that that man is 99% sane and 1% insane, I think you would still deal with him. 99% is such a huge percentage, especially someone coming from the medical field. I'm sure you know that. Yeah. So when you see people wearing these t-shirts, do you think they are justified? Do you think they are lost? What comes to your mind when someone says, I am 99% Alur, but I'm only 1% a Ugandan?
So thank you very much for that. First of all, I'm very proud Acholi. And I believe I got lucky to be an Acholi. So I would proudly wear 99%
Acholi
and 1% Uganda.
So you're not lucky to be a Ugandan?
That's not the case. But the issue is that all of us have a sense of belonging.
All right.
A place where you can call your own. And this place is not just a geographical location. The people that raised you up. In the Acholi setting, we communally raise our children. We teach them characters and virtues like forgiveness and togetherness. And some of these overpower the love or the sense of belonging to a country. You get? Now that doesn't mean that they don't love Uganda. But what I mean is that they draw their strength to stand for Uganda from the cultures where they come from. And that should not be a problem.
Okay.
Because that in and itself is a strength for Uganda.
Okay. So let's go to Comrade Kidega. Shaa says he has a strong attachment to Acholi. He's an Acholi. And he says he would probably wear 99% an Acholi and 1% a Ugandan. Do you think our tribal identities, our ethnicities, yeah, do you think we front them at the expense of Uganda? That the more we say, I am Acholi, the less we are being Ugandan. Or it doesn't matter. Someone can proudly say, Zendi Muganda and all these things, but still also pay the same allegiance to the nation called Uganda.
Thank you very much. You see, Comrade Toko and our viewers, first appreciate that argument. We must draw into perspective the history of Uganda. Our history is one that has been filled with a lot of very strong cultural sentiments and very strong traditions and norms. And moving forward, I think that whereas in the later years we saw colonialism coming into place and telling us that, okay, you guys, you have to civilize, you have to abandon your cultures, you have to abandon your kingdoms. I think that was done for their own benefit, really. I think that we can have our culture as a people still enshrined in our values of society, but at the same time espouse the national interest. For example, let's look at Tanzania as a use case. Tanzania has so many tribes within the same country. They have gone ahead to merge an island, Zanzibar, to bring it under Tanzania. I mean, the Kiswahili people and the tribes are so diverse. But because even with the existence of the tribes, the leadership of the country went ahead to establish a common set of national values, a common national language, values that bring them together above their cultural sentiments and tribal sentiments. So we need both. We need both the cultural values and sentiments, but also we must have an overarching national common set of values and principles that bring us together irrespective of where we come from. So I think the two must coexist because they both help us in shaping our society and offering us direction as a country.
Okay, so Kateregga, why would you said that there are things about Uganda that are not going right, or something to that effect. Yeah? I got that from you when you responded the first time.
Yeah.
So what would make you feel a better Ugandan? What are those things that if they're done today, you would stop wearing jeans and go and print shirts with black, yellow, red all through and wear them instead of the jean shirts? I mean, what would make you really, really feel patriotic and want to identify and feel like you belong to this thing and it's for all of us, it's working for us?
I must declare that I have so many of those shirts.
The jean shirts?
No, shirts that have black here. Right?
Okay, you wear them on a daily, every Tuesday. Today, at least you're not wearing one.
All right. What is clear about this country is there is a lot wanting, and that is why I am talking about a country and not a nation. You've been asking about colleagues. You've been asking colleagues about the same. The idea is that I am a Muganda, and I think I'm the only one here today. I know values that espouse or that define me as a Muganda, as a young Muganda. Kidega is Anacholi, and so is Shaa. Mutesi should be from the West, and you come from somewhere, certainly. Now, where you come from, you have those common values that hold your society together. Things that we all agree on and say this is a no-go area, and people hold dear and support. Now, Kidega hinted on it, that every nation, I think, in this stage of nation building, there are things that we need to, there are very difficult debates that we are trying to avoid. 50, 60 years into independence, Uganda is the only country in this region without a national language. If you look at countries that we got independence with, and countries that were together with in the original East African Federation, we are the only country without a national language. When you look at, I was with Kidega in Ep.29. There is a certain space that put us together as youth from different political parties. I was representing the National Unity Platform, and he was representing the National Resistance Movement. We went to Ep.29, and I think when I went back to the hotel, I intimated my pain that other than the people who were in the hotel, who were able to communicate with in English, I got out and went to the shop to try and buy a toothbrush. I had to come back and get someone, a colleague called Achui, to go and help me speak to the people because we would not communicate. And yet these people carry the same national ID like myself. That is a very serious debate that this nation has to have. So anchoring an issue like a national language, there are so many evils that this nation supports or that go on in this country, not nation, go unchecked because people are unable to communicate amongst themselves. when you look at the level of the way the politics of this nation, of this country has been derailed, it is because people are unable to talk genuinely amongst themselves. So if the citizens from the start are unable to communicate amongst themselves, there are many things that cannot be put right. Before, as I conclude, I also want to introduce something about the governance, because there are countries in a state like Uganda, but they are moving on. There are countries that necessarily do not have a national language, but they have an agreed system on, that this is how we should be governed. They have constitutionalism, and now that is not the same in this country. The people, all the people who have been put in charge of this country, I think from around independence time, have taught us bad manners. From then going forward, I think we need to go back and sort certain issues. One being the governance question in this country, because it addresses so many issues. Now the citizens are handled, what we pay in, what do we expect from the regime and everything. How do we expect people who we give the mandate to do certain things on our behalf to behave? And with these few, I think looking forward, Uganda would become a better place for all of us.
So about the national language, if you are tasked with picking a national language for Uganda, which language would you pick?
Because on top of being a Ugandan, I'm also an advocate for the original East African Federation, the original one, not this politicized one, which is aimed at failing. I would choose Swahili because Swahili is ideally like the second most spoken language on this continent, other than outside Arabic. You are able to communicate with many.
It's about 93 million Africans
speaking Swahili. So when you look at this is a reality. I think Swahili, but also paying attention to the realities in this country, much as about 80 to 85% of the Ugandans either speak or understand Luganda. That is how the case was in Kenya in 1963 when they were choosing Swahili as a national language. Majority of the Kenyans would actually speak Kikuyu, but their leadership then thought that it was wise for them to look
beyond Kenya
and get a more inclusive language. So if we took on Swahili, I think this country would do great.
Okay. Yeah. Let's ask Mutesi now. Do you agree that Kiswahili should be a national language and that we lose a lot as a country by not having a national language?
Yeah, I agree 101% that we should get a unifying language, because the conflict always comes when you can't communicate. If you cannot communicate to one another, then you won't come to an agreement. I believe that most policies are failing. I'll go to that level of policies and how government interacts with people, because most policies are not translated in our local languages. And because we have so many local languages, it also becomes hard for government to break this bit by bit, So if we had one language and these policies are put in the same language, people would understand. We have so many beautiful policies, and you've all studied the policy cycle. At the end of the day, these policies are implemented to affect or impact the Muntua one thing.
Can I just ask the Kenyans also say that their policies are failing, despite the fact of having a national language. The Tanzanians also will show you policies that have failed, despite having Kiswahili. Even the Rwandans, they will have Kinyarwanda and a couple of failed policies. Is the presence, the absence of a national language not just being used as a scapegoat? If you say it's about policies,
first of all,
about the language.
What is the failure in percentage? If you're going to compare countries, let us look at the social, economic, political measures. What do they call failure to them? Because when it comes to GDP, they are way ahead of us, apart from probably Kigali. And Kigali was also rather Rwanda, which had war, it had genocide. And it's catching up very fast because they all have a national language, which is Kinyarwanda. They would speak at once, everyone hears. But for us, you will speak this, someone says this. You can't, we're all not in one direction. So we should go. And Tanzania, I think because they speak the same language, it has helped them have stability and a nationalism in them. It's so strong that you can't break it. That's why it's very easy for them to convince even Zanzibar. They're like, hey, we speak the same language. We are the same people. So that's the basics of implementing the policies and translating them to the Mwananchi, the local person, to get. But sometimes we have very beautiful policies, but people don't even know. Even, for example, I was a youth leader in youth council. The youth livelihood, we send documents in English to people who barely even know how to write their names. How do you expect it to be consumed and people understand? We have money in the bank, but people sometimes they look in these documents, they're in English, and someone says, those are things for the people who went to school. We have a soma. So yet policies are meant, the policy cycle is very clear. Policies are meant to impact the local person, the last person in your last village.
So
they're not meant for the people who make them up here.
Okay, I like binaries, so I'm going to throw in a binary. That if you were to choose between good governance and a national language, if you had to pick one, which one would take precedent over the other?
You cannot tell me to choose between breathing and living.
No,
These two things move together. Good governance.
What I'm trying to build is that
in life there are things you're not supposed to be made to choose. It is your right. You have a right to good governance and you have a right to national language.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's come to Dr. Rubangakene. You participated. Did you participate in the strike of the interns?
Yes.
Immobilized.
Immobilized.
That's right.
So when you are participating in that strike, you are urging the government to pay you. The government had promised people before you that they will be paid. They were never paid. I don't know if you guys are being paid now. They said, in fact, if they are being paid now, we end up asking for transport because that's a lot of money. If you're moving from 800,000 to 2.5, that's surely a lot of money. So now what I want to know is, when you're participating in that strike, in such strike or a strike at Makerere, do you feel like the government of Uganda is failing you? Do you feel like the government is not working for you? Or do you also bear credence to the government's argument that, hey, the resource envelope is actually very limited and we have so many things to take care of? That while you guys need this money, that is true, but we also need the roads, we also need to build schools, we also need so many other things, and the resource envelope is greatly constrained.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to start with the point of the intern strike.
Yes.
The intern strike was not just a strike for increment of payment,
All right.
but it was more than that.
Okay.
First of all, we were striking for improvement infrastructures, various hospitals and health centers across Uganda, where medical workers are being placed to work. You see, I always tell people this, that the health sector is divided into two. One is the infrastructure, the hospitals and the beds and the things. Then you have the health workers who literally use these infrastructures to ensure that service is delivered to the citizens of Uganda. And if you bring it into the human anatomy, we can put it as the infrastructures are the heart, while the health workers are the blood that pump every time. So that is pumped every time. So without both of them being put to a certain bare minimum to function, you cannot operate, and you're going to lose a lot of lives. Frustration comes when you have the ability to help, but you don't have the resources to help. Frustration comes when you do not have enough capacity. You get? Because you receive patients with various conditions, and as a doctor or as a health worker, you're supposed to spend time. And for you to be in position to help them properly, you yourself have to be okay. And you cannot tell me I can serve a patient, a Ugandan citizen, well, if I myself am hungry, if I am worried about my landlord chasing me out, if I'm worried about my security. So it was a partisan matter. And I'm proud of all the doctors and interns who participated across, and all the partners that came in, like Uganda, the National Youth Council, that came in to help, and all the other stakeholders that came in, and luckily we succeeded. Now, to your point of whether we feel like the country or the government has let us down whenever we actually strike for something, I think it's a matter of priority here. You cannot tell me that there is constraints on finance when other sectors that should come as a secondary, that should not compete really with health, is being overfunded.
Like which sectors?
First of all, we won't talk about the security. It's being overfunded. I'm not saying that it's a wrong thing, but I do think that we can also strike a balance. You get to prioritize other sectors like the health that in this dying need of the COVID-19 pathogenic era, the health sector should have been a priority. You get, but even in that state, we were seeing lack of underfunding, which was an issue because Ugandans are losing lives. We have been recording the number of deaths by COVID-19 virus, but the number of deaths that were being caused because people could not access healthcare were not being recorded. And I think it can triple the number of deaths caused directly by COVID. And I think we needed to have that funding.
Okay.
So it's a matter of priorities, and I think it is within the governance, as you asked, whether someone would choose good governance and a national language. I love the way she answered, of course, but I think part of good governance is being able to prioritize sectors that matter at a certain time, depending on the needs.
Okay. Let's go back to Mutesi. Do you feel like the government of Uganda is working for the youth? I have a couple of friends who think that the government is not working for them. They feel like, oops, it's a government of all people. The monitor at that time said the government of all the people leading young people. Then they showed a couple of very aged ministers, above 70, above 80 plus.
The average age.
Yeah. So do you feel like the government in Uganda works for the young people? Do you feel like the young people should be grateful that they have a government like this in place? Or if you had the chance that you would overhaul, you would remove all this government and put there a more sensible government that would actually work for the young people?
I think the government, the young people, they should not settle for less. What do I mean in this? That we constitute the biggest majority of this government, of this country. And when it comes to campaigns, you become important because you hold the number. It cuts across parties everywhere. But when it comes to implementation and sharing of the national cake, you cease to be important. Then they tell you you're not ready for leadership. I am very disappointed as a person, I should say, that when it comes to electioneering, poster pinning, standing on those public systems going all over the place, it is the young people. But when it comes to sharing of the national cake, positions of leadership, we let's not talk about only political positions, because when you talk about political positions are eyes on, hands off. But we have the positions of implementation. We have young people who are qualified to be PSs. You saw the recent PS reshuffle. Where are the young people? Yeah? And those are the implementing positions that where those we have, those who have been in leadership, or hiccups that come with policies. You can have policies written on paper, but when it comes to implementation, it's the technical people, commissioners. We have commissioners, we have officers, we have permanent secretaries, EDs. So when it comes to these positions where young people are supposed to be heard and taken care of, you're told you're not ready. When it comes to the reduced age for political positions, but they did not talk about the positions of implementations, technical positions. And these are the most key positions. I want every young person to put it in their head that even when you have 1,000 ministers who are young, as long as you have a permanent secretary who's not looking the same direction with you, your thing can never pass. Because they'll have all justifications to throw away your policies and your justifications. It is always them that implement. So young people should not only be looked for when it comes to electioneering and vote searching, but also when it comes to implementing these policies, and also positions of technocrats, because this is where the real work is done. So me, I think young people need to demand more. We shouldn't settle for less, because if I say whether government is working or not, what is the measure we have? Youth policies are failing. Which youth policy has been, it's been failing. You know why? Because people who are supposed to implement these policies, there's a mismatch between the policy implementers and those who are supposed to get the policies. The people who receive, the final consumer of this livelihood is actually a young person. But the person who is supposed to implement this policy is old. When you tell this person, I'll give an example, when you are still in youth council, the young person is being forced to, for example, they will tell you, they will go to Karamoja and tell a young person they buy you cassava stems. The person says, me as a young person, I don't deal in this. So if we have young people who are looking the same direction as one Kidega, one Toko, who is a young person, who listens to who speaks the same language like this person who is supposed to be a target of the program, they would come to an understanding. But before I even talk, you're judging me that I'm a hooligan. How do you expect you to communicate when you're ready? Young people, hooligans.
Okay.
So wait a minute. How do you expect me to freely interact with you? You understand my issue when you're already judging me that I'm a hooligan. So I think as young people, we should not settle for less, to say, oh, we have worked for us. How? We want to see work by putting our fellow age mates in implementation positions so that we can have a discussion and we come to an agreement.
Okay. Kidega, she's saying that young people are not benefiting. She thinks that they deserve more than they are receiving. She thinks that even in representation, you have the National Youth Council and the member of the National Youth Council. How does the National Youth Council help young Ugandans, the youths of Uganda, to ensure that they are listened to, more policies implemented, have their footprint on it, and work best for them?
You see, Godwin and viewers, the government of Uganda has three arms. There is the executive, there is the judiciary, and there is parliament in itself, which is the legislature.
And the military.
But I will speak more about the executive because it is the executive that controls or has more influence over the tools of state, over the defense forces, the Uganda police, and other tools of state. But also, we know that Uganda, for example, like colleagues have hinted on, it's a multi-nation state. There are many nations within the same country. What this means is that our foreign policy and national interests are going to be shaped by the domestic set of values. But these same values are not homogeneous. I mean, you have a group of people who believe in something else, whereas the others believe in something else. So a country like Uganda is going to, by all means, struggle in terms of shaping its national interests. What then means is that our interests are going to be defined by they'll be more reactionary. For example, right now as a country, the issue of insecurity, our borders are very porous. Our neighborhood, we know that to the north we have South Sudan, which is undergoing conflict. To the east, down here, we have DRC Congo, which has rebels. So the country is in a very porous neighborhood, and that's why you would understand if government invests more money into security. So our interests are shaped more towards, they are reactionary. But also the state of Uganda, and many political scholars will tell you that a state is actually a political entity that you must know, that has two unique attributes. One is that a state has a territory, which means that they occupy a given geographical surface on the earth. But two, which is the most important, is the sovereignty of any country. That is, you have legitimacy to govern that territory. And I think Uganda has made progress in terms of establishing its state values. But then, because of the multinational state that we are, even institutions like the National Youth Council are going to have to suffer at the expense of the lack of cohesiveness of the country's national interests. So the National Youth Council is just any other entity, okay, that is supposed to extend services to Ugandans. So if we have challenges as an institution in terms of advancing the aspirations of young people, we are not facing this in isolation. Look at Parliament, for example. We all know its clear mandate: oversight, legislation, and appropriation. But if you look at the way Parliament has been operating, we can all question its strength in terms of advancing the doctrine of checks and balances. Okay, how far has Parliament gone in terms of checking the executive? There is a big question mark on that as well. You look at the judiciary, because all these are arms of government. Because if you're looking at how government is close to the people.
Just a second. Is the president the national patron of the National Youth Council or UNSA?
Of UNSA, not of the National Youth Council. So
who is the patron of the National Youth Council?
There is no patron of the National Youth Council. It's an independent institution. Yeah.
So how is it arranged? You're under Ministry
of Gender, Labour and Social Development.
You're directly under the ministry?
Yes.
That makes you part of the executive?
Yes.
Well, you can choose to look at it in that way, because, for example, the NSSF is under Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
Does that make it?
Yes. Because the executive literally is the cabinet, the president, the cabinet, and the army, the police, all that's under the executive, right? Yes, that's how my basic SST reminds me. So if UNSA is under the Ministry of Finance, unless it is a far-fetched, yeah, of course everything in Uganda belongs to ministry. But if you're directly under the ministry, that makes you part of the executive. Yeah, that means perhaps the National Youth Council is not asserting itself enough, that while the other members of the executive are eating, for you guys, you're there that, oh, we shall wait for whatever leftovers will come our way.
No, I think just for ease
appreciation of the
organization of different government institutions, it's important to organize them under maybe given ministries. But the National Youth Council is actually an act of parliament, so we derive our mandate from the constitution independently. But well, let me just go back to the judiciary conclusively, is that because all these are arms of government and they interface either directly or indirectly with the people. And the judiciary, there are still questions around access to justice. You look at issues around corruption, I mean, where justice goes to the highest bidder. I don't know, the lowest level, which is the magistrate court, is still, I think, at district level, right? So I think there's still so much to be done to bring government closer to the people. You look at, because I've heard the PR of the judiciary saying that they still have backlogs, case backlogs. So the capacity of the judiciary has, of course, impeded its ability to deliver services to Ugandans. You look at the parliament, the question around its ability to influence the doctrine of checks and balances still equally hangs in the balance. You look at the executive and the influence it has on the state operatives, which has, of course, over time caused a very thin line between the executive and the tools of state. So there are still challenges, and the National Youth Council is only an institution that is facing some of those challenges that are overarching.
We are going for our break, but I want to just put this to you before we go. Yeah, if you had your way and you are to reorganize the National Youth Council to make it work for the young people in Uganda, what is that magic wand you would swing? What is that one last thing you would do and say, if I put this in place, the National Youth Council will work very well for the young people of Uganda?
The National Youth Council, from where it stands today, it is not in a bad place. And also, I must say that Rome, just like any other institution, was not built in one day. So there is no silver bullet towards addressing the challenges of the National Youth Council. Challenges around underfunding, around infiltration from other institutions.
So underfunding, you would give it more funds.
Of course.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Infiltration, you would stop infiltration.
Independence. I mean, create that independence of the institution.
Yes.
Yes.
So those two would make it a better body.
Well, that and so much more. I mean, I appreciate the process through which the leaders are obtained. I mean, it is a people-led approach where we go to the lowest level of administration, which is the village, and choose leaders from there as they progress towards the national. Okay. So I think there's not so much I would change, except maybe the issue of its funding and the issue of its independence. How I wish we were not squatting under the Ministry of Gender and we have our independent, maybe youth line ministry that is entirely meant for young people. But the mere fact that we are under the Ministry of Gender, which has issues to do with children, issues of women, issues of disabilities, there is so much going on in the ministry in that the youth being under that ministry is, of course, a disadvantage to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Comrade Kidega, and I think these have been very, very well researched, very, very convincing, and very, very entrenched submissions from our panelists. So that marks the end of our first session. We are going to take a quick break and then we resume with the second. We just urge you not to go anywhere. Just subscribe to this channel. Just turn on your notification such that whenever videos are uploaded, whenever something is happening live, you're notified and you can watch them. So let's see you after the break and stick with us. Welcome back. This is the second and final segment of our third Youth Roundtable for this year. We looked at government-citizen relations in the first episode. I tasked and was convinced with the very, very reasonable answers I received from my panelists on what they expect from government, how they think government of Uganda can perform better. And I think even if a Kenyan president listened in to what they said and picked their submissions and implemented it in Kenya, perhaps Kenya would be better. Or they say the DRC, perhaps they would even be better. So that shows you the quality of young people we have in this country. We always say that give the young people a chance. They actually know what to do. So now in the second segment, we're going to switch gears. I want to look at this side. Yeah, that side is government. This side is the Muntu Wansi, the ordinary young person. Does he have a responsibility that he owes the government? How much and how often do they fulfill that obligation? Is there a better way they can fulfill it? And what advice these young people here have for those young people? So I'm going to begin with Shaa. When you say you are Ugandan, what are those things you feel like the government, you owe to the government of Uganda? That if you say I am a Ugandan, it is incumbent on you to do them because you're Ugandan, even when they don't necessarily benefit you, but make you perhaps poorer, perhaps weaker, perhaps bring nothing whatsoever that is of an advantage to you.
Okay, so I wonder why it keeps shifting between my names, Rubangakene and Shaa. Quite interesting.
It's the same person.
Everyone keeps doing that.
Okay.
So as Ugandans, we need to especially as the youth, we need to understand the roles we play in as far as the progress of Uganda is concerned, or any other country is concerned. First of all, being a youth is an inter-transitional state from 12 to 35, right? To 30.
I think there's a conflict there. Those who say 30, those who say 35, depending on the policy. But I think Uganda is 30, right?
Uganda is 30.
But the UN, for instance, could have 35.
Kidega may not like.
And then you also know that the Ugandan youth leaders
is planning
who are
to run
approaching
for
40. Yeah, we can continue, Mr. Rubangakene.
Kidega may not like your definition of youth, but anyway, we can continue. So, first of all, we are the energy, or we are like the bank of the country, and as far as its growth is concerned. One, because the youth are the people with the new ideas, the fresh ideas to advance the country, economically, socially, and even politically. We've seen that the youth are the ones, first of all, politically, they're the ones that join national movements to, in a larger scale, change the nature of a country. It has happened in Uganda quite a number of times, and we also see it happening. The Katereggas in the process of building a movement, and even NRM itself is pushing for, improving its movement, as Kidega maybe one time will tell you. That is politically. They've joined that movement and fuel it. Then, in as far as economically is concerned, youth do have the ideas to advance technology, production, and even a number of sectors in as far as economy is concerned. Agriculture. You've seen even the National Youth Policy through its youth livelihood programs, trying to, improve them. And I think as a youth, I need to be in position to embrace such policies, such programs, projects, in order to be in position to lift Uganda up as a contribution to the nation's growth. We also see there are other sectors that the youth need to get involved in. That is the academics. That through research and participation in new ideas, and fronting them, then can Uganda receive new array of direction where they should go.
All right.
And I think it is quite important that even the current government and actually the youth themselves acknowledge the power they hold. Because Uganda has the youngest population in the world. Among Africa has as a continent, but Uganda itself has the youngest population in the world. And we're moving towards building either a national youth strength or national youth anger, which we are seeing is happening, because we are in a two-way system now, a conundrum where the direction we take will either make the youth of Uganda lose hope, or they will sustain that hope they have. You get? And now it is critical, not only just for the government itself, but also the youth to make decisions that will steer them towards what they want Uganda to be like.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Kateregga, would you consider yourself a patriot of Uganda?
Yes, I'm a patriot because I'm doing everything within my power to change the lives of my people, but also to make the aspirations of the citizens and then the aspirations of those who came before us, our parents, a reality in this nation. What is true about this country is that this country has always had aspirations. We've just failed to take off. So it is that trail that we still take on. So I think I'm a patriot.
Think a patriot of Uganda? Kidega, do you think he's a patriot?
Well, I am not his spokesperson.
But from the discussions you've had with him, I'm sure you've spoken to him. I'm sure you've seen him. I don't want you to be his spokesperson.
We've worked together in UID.
I have not asked if you. I just want to say that. Okay, let me actually not make it about Kateregga. Let me make it open. So when you look at the young people of Uganda, yeah, the ones you've interacted with, in your capacity as a member of the National Youth Council, in your capacity as a young person, the boy you go with to school and all that, do you think they are enthusiastic about Uganda? Do you think they are patriotic? Would they sing the national anthem, yeah, word per word? Would they differentiate the flag of Uganda? And for instance, Belgium. Germany or Belgium, there's a lot of confusion around those ones. Or you would think that maybe there's a lot that needs to be done still.
Thank you, Comrade Godwin Toko. I think yes, many young Ugandans are actually patriotic and they love this country, and that is why they at times agitate to demand for better. Because the other option would have been picking up maybe arms and then fighting the government, but they continuously demand the government for better services.
But I think
for better governance and better accountability.
Just say this. If you're going to say that picking up arms makes you less patriotic, you're going to say Museveni is not patriotic.
No, it's an extreme of controversy. And political scientists will tell you that the extreme sense of any controversy is conflict or war.
Okay.
Whereas the moderate is going to the courts of law and going to the judiciary.
Okay.
So I think many Ugandans love this country, and that is why they continuously, demand the government to account. They hold government to, be transparent and demand government to avail them with services. But you see, well, I'm a Pan-Africanist, and usually I don't like to quote these white authors, but once in a while, one of them says something that really is very captivating. And I'll quote for you Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon said that every generation must identify its generational mission. But the choice of whether to fulfill it or betray it also lies on the same generation. So I think as a generation, we are still struggling with finding our generational mission.
Okay.
Our older brothers and sisters have taught us that, no, you are yellow, you're blue, you're red, and that is how we have grown up seeing ourselves. I'm FDC, I'm NRM, I'm NUP, and that is what they've taught us. But I think it is high time that our generation saw itself as the youth party, the youth movement, irrespective of where we belong.
Okay.
The challenges that are faced by an NRM young person cut across, if it is high taxes, if it is, for example, right now the fuel prices are high. I don't think the NRM young person is buying that fuel at a lesser price compared to the NUP young person. So issues of governance and issues of how society is managed cut across, and it must be at the fundamental or root interest for every young person. But you see, Toko, just to give you a conclusive summary about government-people relationship, all this is anchored in the Constitution. Chapter 1 of the Constitution is clear. Power belongs to the people, and they shall choose how they will be governed. I am not a lawyer, so I cannot quote the exact words, but it is anchored around that. Power belongs to the people, and therefore they shall choose how they shall be governed.
In accordance with the laws, blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
according to the laws and all that. And that is the social contract between the people and the government. It's anchored in that article. And the rest of the chapters in the Constitution, the spirit is derived from Article 1. Okay. When you look at Parliament, it is an aspect of representation of the people.
Okay.
You know, you look at all these other, you know, everything else is anchored on that principle and that article. So for as long as every stakeholder, okay, for as long as government meets up its end of the bargain of the social contract in terms of providing social services, infrastructure, healthcare, access to education, access to telecommunication, I mean, the bare minimum infrastructure, the people also have a role to play. And this is where young people fall. We must pay our taxes. We have a civic duty as well on, you know, choosing our leaders and things like that. So for as long as every stakeholder meets their end of the bargain, this relationship will be harmonious. But if side A chooses to betray its end of the bargain, is when now we see friction and now we see agitation coming up.
So let's move to the lady on the panel, Mutesi. Someone sent me a very, very, can I say, interesting photo yesterday. There was a big boat in the middle of the sea, and there was a storm. Yeah. So inside the boat were there were gentlemen. Yeah. Each of them cutting a piece of the bigger boat to make a smaller boat escape from the storm. So what he was saying is that this is how our government operates. Everyone who has a position kind of uses it to enrich himself at the expense of the bigger society. Probably if you put yourselves together as 10 people in the same boat, you would easily overcome the challenges faster. Now, what I see with Uganda is that there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of misrule. There's a lot of oppression. The government officials, the topmost ranking, seem to be the least patriotic from how I see it. I mean, we just have Entebbe Express Highway that has been commissioned, and now the road tolls have been turned on, that I only pay 10,000 to drive through and avoid all the jam and all that, to get to the airport, for instance, within time. And the senior government officials are saying, why are we paying the 10,000? Yeah? Yet, someone who perhaps vends second-hand shoes in Chikubo, in Nowino, and has a daily income of 100,000, is expected to pay it. Now, here is a government official perhaps who earns about 30 million, yeah, from the taxes that 100,000 earner pays. And he's saying, why should I pay the taxes? So seeing these things the way they are, for what they are, do you think this discourages the young people from being more patriotic? Since they seem to see that those in charge only seem to not even care. They seem not to want to sacrifice as much as everyone else is trying to.
Well, I would say that there's a saying that leaders are a reflection of society. When you look at the parliament, that it talks to you that that's how Uganda looks like. If you look at leaders, that is how Uganda is. If they are corrupt, Uganda is corrupt. Because these people don't fall from Mars and they bring them here. They come from us, against us. I'll give an example. Most cases we have seen where people do wrong things. Instead of society coming up and condemning them, they come up with placards saying that, oh, Museveni, leave our son alone. A delegation comes. Oh, ask people from this place. Our son is being persecuted. When they go to, remember how it happened when someone was supposed to be taken to court?
The examples are, I think, Bukenya, the former vice president. Just a second, to give it context. There was Bukenya, the former vice president, Chogam funds, Sambaganda protested. There was Mike Mukula, Gavi funds, some people protested.
Kaihura.
Yeah, even Kaihura. Because their argument normally is that you're prosecuting our person and not prosecuting your people. Yeah? The Baganda will say, you're prosecuting us because you're prosecuting Mukenya because they're Muganda, and not prosecuting others that ate with him. So would you think that that actually also holds sense, that some people are given favors even when they make those mistakes, and others seem to be treated with kid gloves?
So far, what
Like,
you said, they are
Mwenda.
already those religions,
Yes, yes.
which means half of Uganda is being what? Actually, 3/4 of
Oh,
Uganda
it's being prostituted. Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So, what am I trying to say? That it means that we need to go back and we do an assessment of society. Family is the smallest unit of society. Remember, young kids, you find a mother, a kid steals a toy, takes and hides it. And the mother will not ask, where did you get this? You understand? Which kind of a human being are you grooming? It means you're showing these kids that you can steal and I help you do what? Get away with it. So, I think, as Ugandans, we should go back to the smallest unit of society. Family, church, mosque. Then also, our tradition, because there are people who will believe in traditional leaders. We should bring them on board. We shouldn't be seeing church covering people who are stealing because they bring tithe. They sit in front in church. What are you talking about? What kind of thing are you doing? So you think someone will have the audacity of sitting in church and they are praised and they clap for them, they even keep a seat for them, and you think they're not going to work out with $1 billion of money? These are people who don't fall in mud, they come from us. You go back to your family, your clan, and people still bend for you and beg you and praise you. And you think it's going to stop? Another person is going to be like, oh, when the other did it, what did they do to them? I will also do. People even have it. I will steal, they arrest me, I come back and enjoy my money.
Okay.
Because society is not condemning. If you've seen how society condemns someone who has raped a child. That is why, however much we have those cases, but people are not doing it in what? In public, that someone will come and sleep on a child in front of everyone because they know society is going to condemn them. So we should see corruption as an abomination. That is how people will feel responsible for their actions. That is when a government official will not even feel not ashamed of saying I'm not better. Because they know they're supposed to be examples.
Okay.
If you can't be an example at your leader, that means we lack shame. People no longer have shame. People are walking naked in public, but they don't know they have clothes by they're walking naked by you saying that I am a government official and I don't want to pay tax. What is different from walking naked? Because you're supposed to be exemplary.
Okay. Let me bring in Kateregga to the point you've just said. Now, I want to still relate this to patriotism. She's saying that the reason people are stealing, and me, I believe that if someone steals money that is meant to say buy drugs for the hospital, they're not patriotic. However much they say that I'm patriotic. So if the money is meant to feed 100,000 Ugandans and you eat it, however, even if you picked it and used it to build a church, I don't think you're patriotic. So what she's saying is that we see this because our society is rotten, that the moral fiber of our society has festered away. I have always grappled with that because I feel like any sort of leadership can thrive in a society. That you have places that were very, very corrupt. They get a leader who says zero tolerance to corruption. And then he raises the country. Look at China, yeah? From the time of Mao Zedong, when they adopted those very radical policies, some of these things died out. When you look at South Korea under Park Chung-hee, or the one everyone likes, Singapore under Lee Kuan Yew, when they adopt policies that say we are going to heavily punish corruption, it seems like corruption eventually goes down and the patriotism goes up. So under Park Chung-hee, for instance, they made it a crime to smoke foreign cigarette because they're saying that when you smoke foreign cigarette, it means it's imported. It means you're exchanging our money with the dollar and making our money weak. If you want cigarette, it's a luxury. Smoke from here. They used the laws. So when I see that those people did that with a sense of success, does it communicate to us? Is it that our leaders currently are not concerned with these things, or you agree with that regardless, even with those laws, people would still break them for as long as society allows them to thrive, because in any case they are a mirror reflection of our society?
Yeah, thank you very much. Since everyone has begun with a quote, I'll also begin with a quote that fish.
You want to fit in, eh?
Yes, let me fit in by
saying. I will shock you with a very powerful quote that you will find.
Like he does. Let me also say that the fish rots from
the head.
The head. You've given those examples of Asian tigers, but we have African examples. And like Kidega, I'll pick on those ones. I'm going to, within this region, there is a concept, Kidega knows it, the Magufulification
Of Tanzania.
concept of Tanzania, where Magufuli came in with all these shortcomings, because there are also many when you relate with the people of Tanzania. And he said that henceforth, I have stopped foreign companies from taking Tanzanite from Tanzania because they're exploiting us, for example. They are not going to take ABCD from us. This is going to be done by the government of Tanzania. We do not have a reason as to why, with all these many citizens traveling in and out of this country, we do not have an airline, for example. That was a policy which he started. Another example, which I think he can also relate with, is the country, a junior country to Uganda, which is Rwanda, with the way it behaves, their policy. And all these issues begin with leadership. When Kagame took over Rwanda, and you read, these two countries have a common unifier, which is that they are very censored countries, they are very censored societies. So people don't really get to know what is happening in Rwanda and Tanzania vis-a-vis what happens in Uganda, say, and Kenya. You easily get to know what happens in Kenya and Uganda as compared to what happens in those countries. But in Rwanda, if a civil servant came out and did the unthinkable of what you're talking about, stealing drugs, they would face the wrath. You would not have them transferred. Say, if they were permanent secretaries, like certain things happened under the watch of Pius Bigirimana many years ago. And what was his punishment? He was transferred to a bigger ministry. The same cannot happen in Rwanda. The same could not happen under the watch of Magufuli as president. But the same happens here. And that is why eventually leadership has deteriorated in this society. That it starts from the political head, because according to the constitution, when you look at the president, according to the constitution, I think that is article around in the 60s, where they're talking about the president and the executive powers. They talk about the president as the fountain of honor. That
should be in the 70s, okay?
Yes, is supposed to be that. Is supposed to be astute. Is supposed to be that person who people are supposed to look at and say, you know, this is an upright nation. You understand? Now, when you have a leader, the constitution also says that the president of this nation supersedes any other citizen of this nation. Is given that privilege, that much as we are all equal, for him is a more equal animal. If I am to borrow George Orwell's definition of all animals are equal. Yes, per constitution, the president is given an extra, meaning that he's supposed to stand out as an high priest. Now, when you see whatever happens in this nation, for example, I'm not persecuting him because he's the leader of the NRM and I belong to the opposite. But if a president, a person of a president, I've taken him out, I've singled him out to put these things to question, does not aspire or does not represent these aspirations, does not show that we are a society with moral fiber, certainly we all follow suit. That is why religious leaders follow suit, because you've seen religious leaders, for example, marrying. If you did what religious leaders were doing today in Uganda, in Rwanda, they would come for you. If an army general who is married I am giving you examples of an African country.
Yes.
If an army general, because is expected to be a society, a society leader, if a married army general is got in a university, or if is if society learns that, you know, this man is not practicing fidelity, the regime in that country will come for him. As a result, what has happened? That particular society has thrived. People are now admiring a society that they would not admire in as early or in the 90s. You understand? People in Uganda are now looking at a society like Rwanda, and they're like, "How we wish we are half of what Rwanda is. How we wish we are half of what Tanzania is." So I think leaders, ourselves here, starting with you to Kidega here, we all have a role to play. To see that you know, the kind of values we put out there motivate people into becoming responsible and upright citizens. Thank you.
Okay, so let me move now to Comrade Rubangakene. I've changed the name again. So we often see, especially on Twitter, the Ugandan army seems very popular on Twitter, and some of its officers particularly.
Andrew Mwendo of late.
They keep saying that these are the patriotic citizens, they've sacrificed their life for their country. You a doctor, she's a gender activist.
I'm a teacher.
Is that like your qualification?
I have two. I'm an administrator and I'm a gender expert.
Gender expert and administrator. You are a teacher?
Yes.
And Kidega is a wannabe lawyer.
Software engineer.
He's a software engineer.
Software engineer and a lawyer in the making.
And the mafia of the
So,
system.
and I am a lawyer. And I am a lawyer. So none of us here is a soldier. When I read through the news feed, the timeline on Twitter, there's a suggestion repeatedly that soldiers make a bigger sacrifice for their country. That unless you're a soldier, you're not as patriotic. Yeah. Do you feel like that makes sense? Should we take it that there are people who are more patriotic by virtually choosing different professions, or we can all be patriotic where we are? That I can be a lawyer and say, oops, I'm actually going to be a patriot, and I perhaps even become a better patriot than some soldiers, or to the level of certain soldiers. That you can say, I'm a software engineer, but I'm going to. And what are those things that you would do in your different professions to ensure you reach that level?
So first of all, I think for me to answer that very well, let's define patriotism. Patriotism is the belief that you believe so much in a certain way of living and you feel it's the best.
Yes.
So you want to spread it out to the world. You get. Can be. It can also come in the form of military, even culture.
I think you're defining more of nationalism.
No.
Nationalism
is a sense of belonging to a certain way of certain system.
Cultural beliefs and norms.
Yes. So ideally, I believe very much that anyone can be patriotic in their own form, and I do not think that it is through the sacrifice that you make that it should be the weighing scale. A soldier chooses to go into in the military and defend the people because that's what they do best. You get. It's the way they can express their patriotic beliefs.
All right.
While a doctor goes into theater, or a surgeon goes into theater and operate on a patient who is HIV positive and sometimes contract the virus. An example is Dr. Luquia, the late who contracted Ebola and died. Dr. Koti from La Cho Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital, La Cho, who contracted HIV and died just before the introduction of ARV in Uganda, right? And I think there is no measure to the quality or to life. Whichever way you die, it is still life lost and a contribution that could have been made in a patriotic manner. Right. So to say that the soldiers or the military people are more patriotic is one that I think it's an entitlement that has been developed over the years because they think because they're facing guns, bullets, and arms fire, they think people tend to think it's a greater sacrifice. We appreciate what they're doing. They're keeping us safe, and we can live in harmony. Kateregga can be in position to move in the night without being worried, just as Kidega and Mutesi, and you too.
Okay.
But also you realize that when you fall sick, you will feel safer in the hands of a patriotic Ugandan doctor because
Not
he
a
believes
soldier.
that he has to do whatever it takes to bring you back to life.
Okay.
So I think it is not that I am holding a gun that makes me more patriotic. Thank you.
Okay, now we're almost getting done. So I want us I want to ask you guys the qualities that would make someone a patriot. Yeah. So I'm going to ask each of you to name for me someone. It shouldn't be yourself. Yeah. I know Kidega would say that I'm the one. But I want you to look within all those you know. Yeah. People you've read about, people you interact with, and tell me that I think this person is the most patriotic person I know because of reasons A, B, C, D. They can be a leader out there, religious, economic, political, any sphere. Or they can be an everyday Ugandan. Yeah. If you ask me who the most patriotic person is, I'll probably choose a boda guy. Yeah. Yeah, boda guy or a taxi person. Yeah. That while they are looking for money, they also sacrifice a lot. Yeah. And because of the boda economy, a lot of us are able to do our work. That I am here, but my boda guy is somewhere out there delivering books that I wrote. I'm here, but the boda guy can take my kid to school. So I want you to describe for us, in your own sense, the 5 qualities you think that a patriot would have. 5, eh? You can make them less. You can make them more to 7, not more than that. And then the person you think that is the most patriotic from your own experience. So this is a tough question, and we're going to begin with tough people. Let's begin with Kidega.
Well, thank you very much, Godwin. But just before I ask that, just give me 1 minute to speak about something.
All right.
You see, there's something called legitimacy and governance. The reason as to why political parties contest for political power is because they are trying to derive legitimacy. Because legitimacy is a source of power. But also there is something called governance. And governance thrives on the will and support of the people. If the people don't support any government, that government is going to struggle in terms of implementing its policies. So by and large, any government in power should thrive to wield the faith of the people and maintain that faith. But just to answer your question, to me, a patriotic person is the core principles or core values that I think should cut across is because every country has significant maybe symbols. Okay? For example, in Uganda, we have the national emblem, which is the crested crane. We have the national flag. It is also a symbol of nationalism in this country. We have the national anthem. Chapter 2 of the Constitution speaks about the Republic, and the Republic has core principles. I have mentioned some of them. So to me, for as long as someone accords allegiance to these core principles that strengthen the Republic, our national flag, our national anthem, our national emblem, our national coat of arms, and those core principles that are enshrined in our Republic values, to me that person is good enough to be patriotic. Of course, with all that come values of accountability, transparency, and love for one another, things like that.
So, but just before you proceed, you know that the average Ugandan doesn't even know what the chapter 2 of the Constitution says. The average Ugandan, yeah,
but knows the flag, knows that.
The average Ugandan will. I move to the villages often. When you move to northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, and parts of the west, yeah, where I go once in a while, there are these government schools. They have their signposts. Yeah. Next time you move there, take a look and interest in those signposts. Most of them have the Uganda flag wrong. Why they have black, yellow, red. Flag of Belgium, you understand? The flag of Uganda is black, yellow, red repeated, and then the crested crane, or something to show that there's a crested crane. Yeah. So very many Ugandans don't even know what their flag looks like. But if they got any black, yellow, red, they wave it with the mindset that, oh, this is the Ugandan flag. Yeah. They perhaps don't even know the Ugandan anthem. So aren't you making your definition so elitist? Yeah. Picking it from the Constitution, making it about these symbols and emblems that very few Ugandans know, even can relate with. I mean, some very hungry Ugandan, even if he respects the crested crane and that's the only thing he can eat, he may end up eating it for lunch, or the Uganda kobe, yeah, despite that being illegal in the country. So don't you think you're making it so elitist?
Well, conclusively, I think that patriotism is it's a spirit.
Okay.
It is more within us than it is actually seen.
Exactly. That's what I want to hear.
Circumstances might limit us in terms of espousing our patriotic values. But what matters to me the most is the inner spirit and the value you have for patriotism. Then the person that to me I think I would call the most patriotic is my mother. Because yeah, I have seen her, she has raised me, and I've seen the way she's so diligent towards paying her taxes, the way she's so diligent towards abiding by government laws and policies, the way she's so diligent about respecting, you know, values of society. I think to me she espouses very strong values of patriotism.
Okay. Same question. Let's listen to Mr. Kateregga now.
Thank you. For me, most of the people in this country pass off for patriots because of the idea of the Ugandan story. We do not pay attention quite often to our story, but our story is one of the struggles. So whoever struggles to survive, but also create means for others under their care, pass off as Kidega has just qualified his mother. For one, I want to qualify all responsible parents in this country to be the most outstanding patriots, because those are the people who give us values, who have, for example, a person like me, what I espouse and stand for was created by that society that I grew up with, my parents and the community, yes, and the teachers who wake up and wake up to teach, you know, a nation, and end up being paid an allowance of someone like Kidega. His allowance at National Youth Council is a salary for
allowance for what? For attending a meeting?
Yes, for attending a meeting. Is what? Is a salary for some teachers in this nation. So I a qualified teacher that.
Is he speaking as my spokesperson or I don't know? In what capacity is he speaking? Comrade moderator.
Or we should ask him also what his allowance
is. He's holding a public office, so you should know that we know.
No, ours is a voluntary public office.
Yes, just like ours. So I think such civil servants, as teachers, doctors, not lawyers, soldiers.
They are lawyers who work for government.
Yes, they are lawyers who work for government.
They are called prosecutors. You normally hear of them like they are called the district prosecutors.
Yes, people like Justice Byabakama. We remember him as a prosecutor, as a state prosecutor, and others. So everyone who aspires to do good in very tough situations that are created in this nation passes off as a patriot for me.
Okay. Let's listen to Olivia. You really have no answer for it.
I think a patriot in this case, talk about Uganda. Is a person who is a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
And a breadwinner. Everyone, Uganda is a heart. Who wakes up in the morning and goes to hustle. Call it hustle. To make ends meet. Mostly in this COVID.
Call it 2 years
of being in a lockdown. With parents, having children. I mean, it's been a tough time. So I think people are not, being in a house with children and you don't kill them and they eat, they do everything. I mean, it's been a tough time. So I think we are yes, because children can make you one. You have 8 children in the same house and they're looking at you and people are being laid off their jobs. And people have to go out there in a market which has people don't have money to buy things. So I think it's been an act of patriotism and they have taken up responsibility and they have not abandoned their families because family is the smallest unit of society. If family is not stable, trust me, we are going to have a worse society. We shall have terror. So everyone who wakes up in the morning, who has a family and goes to win bread for them, that person is a patriot. So I'll conclude by saying that as young people, we should, regardless of what we're going through, we should wake up in the morning and want to get something we can do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Shaa, your response, Mr. Rubangakene.
so personally, I want to answer this. I want to tell you a story, a short story. When COVID struck, we never had answers. We didn't have the treatment, we didn't have the way of testing, but there was a group of people who chose to stay at the front, even at the expense of their lives. Those are the health workers. We lost apparently 28,000 health workers globally because of poor health systems, poor stocking of these health systems. And even if that was the case, they still stood there. And these are doctors, these are nurses, these are laboratory technicians who, even if they were not being appreciated, they stood for 2 good years amidst COVID until research started bringing out something.
Okay.
To me, that is patriotic. One, we used to go to Chirudu National Park, and every day at the reception, you would mix with, out of 10 patients who would be admitted, 6 would be tested, would test COVID-19 positive, and then you have to deal with the side effects as the health worker. But no response from the government. But we still stood there. That is patriotic, doing something at the expense of your own life. Then 2, during our strike as interns, if you watched my video, I made mention of the nature of the kind of parents we have. This is just to add, and what the struggles they go through. One of them is they are doing
The frying
and
chapel.
mention-
That's what you said.
not frying chapel. They are doing things that you cannot imagine.
Yeah.
They're spending sleepless nights to catch senene, as I said, so that they can afford to put their children through school. They are burning charcoal to ensure that their kids are at school. Even if COVID was there, even if they did not have the means to transport, they found a way to transport to the market. We had mothers sleeping in marketplaces through the night, getting malaria, suffering, with all these, but still not in any way giving up, because they believed in the future of Uganda and the future of their children, and they, by the way, never complained.
All right.
That is patriotic.
Okay. Our time is fast spent. I have been sufficiently reminded, but we should be out of here by the producers. But before we go, I'm just going to ask that you make your conclusions, and like we agreed earlier, just tell us the book you're reading. But if you could do that in about 40 seconds, yeah, as brief as you can, that would be really powerful for us. So let's start with Mr. Rubangakene.
Yeah, I'll pick up from where I left. First of all, I also want to just add one. That is the group of people the young leaders, who are choosing to do things. They are choosing to innovate ways of helping others. I give a shout out to a lady known as Pesh Pony, who is helping through Femme Talk in West Nile, girls who have been affected by teenage pregnancy, and she's trying to educate them and equip them with the tools they need to go back to school and manage to navigate the kind of condition they're in. Now, in and many other ladies out there and young men out there who are trying to do the same, that is the way to go. Now, I think where we are now as Uganda is to either, as I said before, we're in 2 ways now. Either we're going to have the threat of the young Ugandan population or the strength of Ugandan population. And I think I want you to believe very much that both the government and the young population have a very critical role to play. And I want to say out there that the youth or the young people should play their part.
Okay.
And the book that I'm reading right now was a gift from Toko Godwin. That is Notes on Nationalism, and also The Promised Land by Barack Obama.
Notes on Nationalism is by
George.
George Orwell. George Orwell, known as Eric Blair. George Orwell was his alias. Okay, let's say to Mutesi.
From where I stopped, I can't leave this place without thanking the mothers. Those ones were single mothers. Those ones who are mothers in the house, but their husbands don't have responsibility. They come back drunk. They even take the small they have worked for to drink it. I think they are very patriotic. I can't forget to talk about those people. And to the contrary, I'm not reading a book because I'm reading so many. I don't have that particular, because I'm writing my researches on child marriage.
Okay.
As a country, we are sitting on a time bomb. We have so many cases of child murders. We have in Bukedji sub-region, and particularly Mutaleja district. The other time I was watching TV and they were broadcasting a young woman, 27-year-old girl, as a child mother. I think that's terrifying, and we should cry for our country. We should actually rise up as a nation to condemn child marriage. We find solution because we have the laws, but they're not implemented. What is not right? Because we have all the beautiful laws in the shelves, but we still have these escalating cases. And for COVID, it has made it worse.
Okay.
And before I conclude, I will say that we shall not have the development we desire when we have children as mothers taking care of their fellow children, because these very children have no experience, no source of income. So we're going to have a generation which is not taken care of, and it will backfire on us. Thank you.
Mr. Kateregga, wrap it up.
Thank you. I'll pick it up where I also want to thank all the fathers who are choosing to be responsible, who are participating in a process of transforming this nation through building better citizens.
I am one of those fathers now.
Yes, I want to thank you. That please don't tire. It is entirely our responsibility. I'm not yet a father, but it is our responsibility to give this nation.
We've heard the message.
Yes,
we appreciate
direction. Let us not forget that when we get onto this gender question, we usually forget
the fathers.
The fathers. This society is a two-winged bird. So if any of them is hurt, society cannot thrive. So for our society to succeed, we need to empower
both the fathers.
Yes, to empower the women and the male to succeed equally. I'm still reading. I continue to read into Ugandan literature. I began off this year with Jim Spire's books, both of them quarantined, experiencing, walking us through his quarantine situation, or what he went through, but also speaking for thousands that went through it, an experience of Uganda, talking about the healthcare system and our healthcare policy. Then, currently reading What I Saw When I Died is satirical pieces put together. I'm also reading a report, one of the initial reports by the Britons called the Roadmaster Report on Uganda, putting together, a number of things. When did we begin growing coffee? This report was produced around the 60s, but you need to pay attention you need to know where this nation aims. Yes, if we need to go forward. Thank you very much.
And finally, Kidega.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Toko. My last words regarding today's subject matter is that the government-people relationship is a social contract. And the people are the employees. They employ a government, and the people have a chance to either renew this contract to the same government or choose a new service provider, depending on how this government has performed in a given time period. Usually in Uganda, it's 5 years. And government has a responsibility to provide services to its people, avail the bare minimum of infrastructure, healthcare services, access to education, access to telecommunication services, among others. To the people, if you feel the government is not doing enough to meet the end of the bargain, you have a contract with your government. So the power falls and lies in your hands. What I'm reading now is a book by Ben Carson, a very common book, Gifted Hands, because Uganda is a country that is so resilient. Uganda, if you went on that Bukoto stretch, in the morning you'll find people selling masks. As soon as it begins to rain, the same people will have umbrellas. That is the resilience and that is the passion that Ugandans espouse, and that is the resilience that this country must tap into. To the young people, you have gifted hands. Whatever you are doing, be the best at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much to today's panelists. I hope you will enjoy this the way I have enjoyed it, and I hope that you can watch the video several times. Unlike us, you have the advantage of always going back and watching what was said. I am happy that we are finally concluding this discussion. I thought it would take us much longer because there's clearly a lot to say. But as you know, we cannot, if we were to have this discussion, we'd have it until the cows come back home, like they say. But we have to call it quits now. And we'll be grateful to see you next week. So we remind you again, just subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification, and always check for new videos. There's a couple of videos here. There's the one from the women's shows. There's the one from
the community show.
The community show. There's the one of the civic space that has the likes of Sarabirete. You can always watch these shows over and over again. And I'm sure that there's something you always speak. Our panelists, if they don't research, at least they speak out their mind. So at best you can know what these young leaders think and dig into their mind. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week, inshallah, and wish you all the best. Until then.